She came right.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank everyone here for coming tonight. Welcome to the Players. I'm Matthew Baker. I'm Artistic Director of Poetry at the Players. It is my great honor to welcome to our club A Room of Her Own Foundation. The foundation has come and joined us here from across the country. We're very, very happy to have you. We're happy to have you at this club, which of course, although the performing arts are the main focus of the Players, we do have a rich literary history. John Steinbeck was a member here, Ernest Hemingway, Eugene O'Neill, Howard Lindsay, and many other, minor figures in the literary firmament. And of course in the neighborhood of Gramercy Park, where O. Henry wrote Gift of the Magi, where the McCourt brothers have launched their books, etc. Books are us in this neighborhood. And of course that brings us to the city itself. It is wonderful that you have chosen to have your event here in New York, artistically the most inspiring city in the world. And that is not hyperbole, my friends. Think about it. Edward Hopper did not paint the Golden Gate Bridge. Andy Warhol did not focus his camera for 8 hours on the Washington Monument. Simon and Garfunkel did not sing The Only Living Boy in Chicago. Sinatra did not sing Newport, Newport. Gershwin did not base Rhapsody in Blue on Victoria Station, and Truman Capote did not write Breakfast at Harrods. Now that is with all respect to the world to those other great cities, because they are great cities, but there is only one New York, and we are very glad to have a Room of Our Own Foundation here in New York City at the Players, and I would like to welcome the president of A Room of Our Own, Ms. Darlene Chandler Bassett.
Thank you so much for coming this evening. Thank you so much, Matthew, for making this all possible. Indeed, I can't tell you how thrilled we are to be in New York. And thank you for coming together to celebrate the 6th $50,000 Gift of Freedom Award. Awarding the $50,000 Gift of Freedom for an imagined yet unwritten literary project is AROHO's unique form of arts patronage. We have dedicated over $1 million to empower creative women through their singular and substantive voices. The AROHO story begins 13 years ago and about a 2-day drive from here. The scene was Georgia O'Keeffe's beloved Ghost Ranch in northern New Mexico. I was there as part of a women's group, and one night an ex-nun told her story. Mary Johnson had spent 20 years with Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity and had walked away from the only world that she had known as an adult. That night, Mary asked her what she really wanted in life. What she wanted, she finally figured out, was a room of her own in which to write her story. Mary threw off her fear and asked her what she wanted in the presence of women, most of whom were strangers. I was one of those strangers in the room. Her fearlessness was contagious. I caught the bug. A Room of Her Own Foundation was my response. A Gift of Freedom for a room and financial support began as a moral contract between the two of us. Tonight, we are announcing the winner of the 6th $50,000 Gift of Freedom, and hundreds of women have gathered at AROHO retreats in the same place where Mary challenged herself, the universe, and me. AROHO is an idea wrapped in a story. If you could remove fear, what would you do differently? What would that life be? What would that art be? And now it is my pleasure to introduce the woman who joined Mary and me to continue the AROHO story. AROHO Executive Board member, literary arts activist, and managing editor of Red Hen Press, the totally fearless Kate Gale. Kate?
I wanted to say a couple things about the process of coming up with a Gift of Freedom winner. One of the Gift of Freedom winners is here, Barb Johnson. Where are you? So I was on the finalist judging committee for Barb Johnson and for the winner before her, who was Summer Wood. And during that process, I was also asked to be a finalist judge for the $100,000 prize, for the Kingsley Tufts Award. And Darlene called me to congratulate me for that, and she said, "What are you going to be looking for?" I said, "Darlene, don't be silly. I'm going to be looking for a lesbian carpenter." It was just amazing that there were 2 lesbian carpenters in a row. But what we were really looking for is exactly what we came up with in this year's winner. We were looking for someone who was an outsider. We were looking for someone who was writing the stories that are underground, that are sort of crawling along the surface, the kind of stories that feel like they need to be told, but they're not being told in a traditional sense. I want to read you a little bit from 2 of the genre finalists. Irena Lara Silva is a writer who lives in Texas. She is diabetic. She works several jobs to support herself. She's a working class Latina lesbian. She says she's mostly lesbian. I think we're all somewhat lesbian, so I think it's good. So this is what she says. To write is to give the best of you, to whittle your spirit to essence and beauty and then give it so that others can meet you at that same place. And what they give you is so much greater than what you can imagine receiving. So now, in these quiet moments that I am giving to myself and to my writing, I know that I am working toward another kind of giving. The last revision of the short story collection incorporated that understanding, and my second collection of poetry was built on that understanding. My stories need to offer hope. My poems on diabetes and healing need to be spoken, to be shared, to be given. This is what I came here to do. Others may measure my success or failure. However, I may sometimes wish for external signs of accomplishment. However, I know that my real task lies in shaping language to what I must say. I'll do my best to share my work with readers, but after that, what will matter most was that I was able to give everything I could give. One of the other genre finalists was a young woman named Florencia Ramirez. She lives in Ventura, California, and her big project is this project about writing about how we can use less water, and it's called Eat Less Water. And she spent a lot of time with us at Ghost Ranch explaining what tequila we were allowed to drink. And I'm from a wine-producing state right next to a tequila-producing country, so it's very important in California for us to know what tequila is being grown ecologically. So she had this whole list for us, and but her big movement is to encourage Latinos to work more ecologically. She feels that there's this sense that being environmental in the kitchen is a white person's thing, and she's going to make it a Latino thing as well. And this is what she writes. On the sky blue wall of my daughter's bedroom, I painted in black letters, "I love you to the moon and back." It was a quote from my favorite children's book. When my daughter was little, reading aloud this line to her never failed to cause my voice to crack and my eyes to well up with tears. Years later, I learned that the women and children of South Africa collectively walk the distance to the moon and back 17 times each day for water. I thought about the words I'd stenciled on the walls of my daughter's room. I contemplated little girls carrying heavy pots of water on their heads walking to the moon and back. You must be the change you want to see, Gandhi is reported to have said. Today, every river in India is polluted and the water table is shrinking from overpumping, not just to feed India's billions, but to grow food for export. The crisis of a severe water shortage is at hand, yet few of us are aware of it. My project is born from an intense desire, a duty I feel to motivate humanity to change our wasteful water habits and preserve and conserve our freshwater resources now and for future generations. Thank you so much.
So I'm Mary Johnson, the one whose need for a room of my own kind of got the whole thing rolling.
Thank you, Mary.
Yeah. And I'm here to introduce Barb Johnson, Johnson & Johnson. But it's really my privilege to introduce her to you. AROHO awarded Barb Johnson the 5th Gift of Freedom to complete her project, St. Louis of Palmyra, a novel based on the characters that inhabited her award-winning first short story collection, More of This World or Maybe Another. Really a terrific book. Barb is now the director of the MFA Low Residency Program in Creative Writing at the University of New Orleans. And she has said that she, quote, continues to learn what it is to be an author, to separate the author's duties from the writer's needs. All of this learning has been made easier and faster through the support of the Gift of Freedom. Something so good, I still can't believe it's true. To me, Barb Johnson is so good that I'm not always sure she's real. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Barb Johnson.
I meant to put my shoes back on.
They're over here. Would you like them?
First, I would like to thank Darlene and Mary and Kate for getting this going and for keeping it going and for making it possible, not just for me. Sounds grandiose, but for the world. I was talking to Diane earlier, and we were sort of remarking on how, and Mary just repeated, it doesn't seem real. You know, the end of this particular story seems completely implausible. And that was making me think about when I try to teach my students about, you know, they're always tacking on the endings that they want, horrible things that happen, or yay, great things, but they're just tacked on. And in a story, what I try to teach them, and I'm not a particularly logical person, so this is how I teach them, causal sequence of events, that everything is causally linked in a story. So when you get to the end, of course, that's the ending. That makes sense. To teach the causal sequence of events, because I'm not a logical person or an orderly thinker, I use the parable about for want of a nail. Do y'all know that one?
For want of a nail, the shoe was lost.
For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of the horse, the rider was lost. For want of the rider, the message was lost. For want of the message, the battle was lost. For want of the battle, the kingdom was lost. And all for the want of a nail. And I would say that the gift of freedom is the nail. And I thank you all for keeping an eye out for the nails that are necessary to make it all happen, to make it end this way. Diane, where are you? Diane, congratulations. It's going to be fantastic. Thank you.
Too many of us believed our mothers' biographies of hardship. Too many of our mothers try to make their story our story, but that's a gift we refuse to accept. Our sixth $50,000 Gift of Freedom winner wrote in her poem entitled Girl. She knows better than to ask for whatever it is she's wanting. We would give her another story if we could. Now we are grown women in a car on our way to somewhere else. Tonight we are here to celebrate a different ending for that girl. With AROHO, that girl travels with us. The Gift of Freedom puts us all together in that car. But it is she who chooses the destination, because now she is a woman who embraces the truth that she is not only the main character, but the narrator of her story. And now it is she who invites us along by telling women's urgent stories in poetry that is both stunning and accessible. For the Gift of Freedom, AROHO searches for work that moves us and that takes risks. AROHO searches for writers who work and live at a level of mastery and excellence, and we found that in Diane Gilliam. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my deepest delight to introduce you to the winner of A Room of Her Own's sixth Gift of Freedom, Diane Gilliam.
I thank all of you for being here to share in this happy moment and for being part of what makes it happen. When I started on the path that brought me here, what I hoped for was from the monetary part of the gift, enough peace of mind that would let me write the book that I wanted to write. But once I learned the AROHO story, once I knew what had happened between Darlene and Mary, what I really, really wanted in a deeper place was to be part of that story. And once I had spoken to Darlene on the phone, and I also spoke to Mary on the phone when they called to tell me that I was a finalist. Even though there was so much at stake for me, and it seems counterintuitive, there was this great calm that came over me. And I didn't know what would happen for me, but I trusted that my work was in good hands, and that no matter what the answer was for me, that only right things could happen out of what they started. And I thought much less about being safe, and I got all lit up at the possibility that I might really get to live my writing life after all. And I got the call, and I'm still all lit up. There is something that is even better than being a winner, and that is to be the recipient of a gift. Because a winner is one person, but a person who receives a gift enters into a circle of reciprocity where the gift lives and it moves and it blesses everyone that it passes through. Can I get an amen on that? Amen. So I'm going to read you a poem. Be my first offering to the circle. This poem is called Where I'm From, and it's written after a poem by Georgella Lyon, who's a Kentucky poet and my dear friend. And I need only to tell you that Hopi in the first line of the poem is my mother's name. Her name is Hope, but in the family she's Hopi. So, where I'm from. I am from Hopi and Odell, from Rumi's anteroom of souls, some kind of late-night wedding chapel where, as my parents married, my soul stood up at the sweetness of their faces. Yes, I said, I will. I do. I am from sweet Jesus glowing honey brown on the back wall of the church, and my mother's cousin Darlene leading song service up front, her arms waving like a drum major's. I'm redeemed, by love divine, by love divine. Glory, glory, Christ is mine, Christ is mine. The man singing the echo part, and the sun pouring in all wild. I am from the uncool table of girls who polished rocks, made up songs in little notebooks, and spoke in the language of the once and future king. From learning to say grandma instead of mama, and to not tell about the poke Daddy pulled from the side of the road for supper. I'm from the time I asked Laura Grinstead of the smooth hair and matching clothes a question about English class, and Nancy Grimm informed me. Were you talking to her? I'm from watching my sister-in-law to learn what to wear. I'm from 10 years of graduate school and always only one right answer for every 25 students. From the full professor who said to me as I sat in his office 8 months gone, shame, I was having babies instead of books. And from my girls who birth me every day into this world. I'm from heart attacks and strokes, from Daddy playing his guitar and whispering hope to Uncle Ted at 3 a.m. in the Morrow County Hospital, and from my cousin Debbie, who punched out the nurse that tried to stop him. I'm from the man who took off his hat when I cried in the elevator in St. Joe's, and from the woman who prayed with my mother in the bathroom at Walmart the 4th day after chemo. I am from the same waiting room as you, the one where God said, "Who will go to this world I made only out of things that die, and find out for us how much sweetness that adds?" And we, all of us, raised our hands. Thank you.
I guess I'm taller than Diane. We're getting very close to the part where you get to go back to partying. So I'm just going to close with this. A little story. I've been to Ghost Ranch twice. The first time was in 2009. And when I went there, I was a poet and I was a librettist. I write librettos to operas, and I had this one big book, though, that I didn't tell anybody about because I've been working on it for so many years. And it was about growing up in a cult. I grew up in a cult until I was 18, and I had written this great big book about it, and I was working and working on it, but I didn't want to tell anyone about it. And because I have a PhD in poetry, so the poetry sort of made sense, and I could clean up the poetry, but I couldn't clean up this story. So when I was at Ghost Ranch, I started talking about it because there was only women there and there was no men to show off to, so why not? And so I'm talking about this story, and people started getting excited about it. That is what A Room of Her Own is about. It's about coming out of the closet. It's about coming out and saying, I'm writing this big story, and somebody else getting excited about it, and somebody else saying, we're going to try to make a little room for you in the world where you can tell this story, where you can write this story, where you can make this story happen. And there's so many women that go to Ghost Ranch who are working and have MFAs, many of them. They've been working on a story for a long time, but they're afraid to bring that ugly little thing out of the closet. Mine was like this screaming little girl's story, and I didn't want her to come out because she was messy. And I think that part of what A Room of Her Own is about is bringing those stories out for a whole community. Darlene read all of 826 people, applications who applied for this Gift of Freedom. I ended up reading the last 100, and there were 100 amazing applicants. There were 100 amazing stories. So what we would like to be able to do in 2015 is be able to open this up to the 7th Gift of Freedom winner. We'd like to make sure that there will be a 7th and an 8th and a 9th and a 10th. And so what I'm hoping that all of us can do is pledge to be part of that, be stakeholders in this. What I told Darlene that I would do a year or two ago is I will give to the biggest part of my capacity. I looked at how much I make as a little university professor, how much I'm already giving to other things, and I said this is the most I can give and still stay indoors. I encourage you all to give to A Room of Her Own as a stakeholder, the most you can give and still stay indoors, because we all need a room of our own. Thank you so much for coming. Keep drinking.
Thank you so much for coming. I want to make sure that you understand that all of the beautiful materials on the table are gifts to each of you for coming. And enjoy yourself, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight to celebrate the $650,000 Gift of Freedom winner for A Room of Her Own Foundation. Jane, and Sandy. It's meant so much to be able to introduce Diane Gilliam to you and to talk about the courage of the 826 women who applied for the Gift of Freedom.
And thank you, Darlene. You are absolutely amazing, and we are all there for you.
Thank you for everything you do every day, because we know you're doing this every day.
Thank you. And thank you to all the women writers who began again, again, and again.